Welcome to the Pencil Bob channel. I hope you enjoy my stories.
I moved into my condo townhome in 2017, excited for a new chapter in my life. The monthly HOA fee was $160 back then, which seemed reasonable for the amenities and services provided. The complex had well-maintained common areas, a clean, quiet environment, and the promise of community living that was supposed to be hassle-free. I was eager to settle in, decorate, and start fresh. But as the months passed, it became clear that the HOA wasn't as simple as I'd hoped. The first signs of trouble started when I received a notice about a minor issue with my property that seemed completely out of nowhere. At first, I thought it was a misunderstanding. After all, everything had been fine. But that was just the beginning. What I hadn't anticipated was the constant back and forth with the management company and the HOA board, who seemed to have their own ideas of what constituted a violation and a problem. There was no room for common sense or flexibility. What I thought would be a quiet, peaceful living experience quickly turned into a battle of wills. Every year, like clockwork, the fees would creep up $10 to $20. It was annoying, but I tried to rationalize it as the cost of maintaining the property and keeping things running smoothly. After all, the HOA always emphasized how the fee increases were necessary to ensure everything stayed in top shape. At first, it wasn't a huge deal. I could absorb the increases without much trouble. But by 2023, we were up to $220 per month, which was starting to feel a bit steep, especially given the ongoing issues with the management company. I'd heard rumors that some homeowners were also grumbling about the fees, but there didn't seem to be much we could do about it. Then came the debacle of 2024. That's when things took a serious turn for the worse. The fee hike didn't just keep climbing. It came with new, mysterious charges, and out of nowhere, we were hit with an emergency special assessment. Suddenly, the HOA felt like a money pit, and the transparency we had been promised seemed like a distant memory. In January, I received the usual coupon booklet from the management company for the year's HOA payments. I dutifully wrote out my checks for $220 each month and sent them in, just as I had been doing. Everything seemed normal until April rolled around. That's when I got a call from Brenda at the management company. Her shrill voice grated on my nerves as she informed me I was delinquent on my payments for the first 4 months of the year. "Excuse me," I said, trying to keep my cool. "I've paid $220 every month, just like the coupon book shows. I have the receipts right here." Brenda didn't even pause before responding, her tone almost mocking. "Well, there was an error in the booklets," she said snippily. "The new fee is $240 per month. You owe us the difference." I could feel my frustration rising. "I'm sorry, but if there was a change in the fees, shouldn't I have been notified? I haven't received any updated statements or a notice about this increase." Brenda sighed dramatically, as if I were the one inconveniencing her. "It's not my fault the booklets were printed wrong," she said, as if that somehow made everything my problem. "We sent an email about the fee change, but it's possible you missed it." I felt my blood pressure rising, but I forced myself to stay calm. I didn't miss any email. If this was such a big deal, why wasn't I notified properly? "I'm not just going to pay extra money because of a mistake on your end." She sighed again, now sounding more exasperated than ever. "I'm just telling you what's in the system. You owe us the $80 difference for each of the first 4 months. That's $320. I couldn't believe it. You're seriously telling me I owe you $320 because of a mistake on your part? Why wasn't this fixed sooner?" Brenda, clearly not interested in helping, gave a sharp, "I don't know, but you'll need to pay it or face late fees." I took a deep breath before responding. "I'm sorry, but that's not my problem. I paid what I owed based on the information you provided. I'll be happy to pay $240 going forward, but I'm not responsible for your mistake." We went back and forth for a while, with Brenda insisting I needed to make up the difference immediately. Finally, we reached a compromise. I'd add an extra $20 to my May payment to cover April, and that would be the end of it. Or so I thought. In May, I got a letter saying my account was still delinquent. They had tacked on a $35 late fee. I called the management company again, this time speaking to Todd. He assured me he'd talk to the HOA board and get it reversed. "Don't worry about it," Todd said smoothly, his voice calm and reassuring. "We'll take care of it by August or September at the latest. You won't have to deal with this anymore." Foolishly, I believed him. I wanted to believe that this would all get sorted out, that the stress of the constant back and forth would end. After all, Todd had always been one of the more personable board members, and I thought he genuinely wanted to help. But the letters kept coming, month after month, each one more threatening than the last. The same stern, legal-sounding warnings, with bold, red letters screaming, "Final notice." Each time, another $35 late fee was tacked on, as if this was some kind of game to them. I'd call Todd to follow up, but he would just assure me again that they were handling it and that I should be patient. But nothing changed. The total kept climbing. $70, $105, $140. I began to dread opening my mailbox, knowing each time I'd find another letter with an inflated amount. By September, it had ballooned to over $200, and the reality of the situation began to sink in. Not only was I paying for something that wasn't my fault, but I was also being punished for trying to resolve the issue. Each conversation I had with Todd felt like a broken record, his promises ringing hollow and his reassurances less and less convincing. It was becoming clear that this wasn't a mistake they were fixing. It was becoming a strategy to squeeze more money out of me. I scoured the bills, trying to make sense of their convoluted math. It was like they were pulling numbers out of thin air. The September statement showed a measly $70 board approval credit, but I still supposedly owed $170 after that. My blood boiled every time I opened my mailbox to find another threatening letter. I fired off emails and left voicemails, but it was like shouting into the void. For 2 months straight, not a peep from the management company or HOA board. I couldn't help but wonder if this was some kind of twisted revenge plot. You see, I've never been one to sit back quietly when I see injustice. Over the years, I've butted heads with the HOA board numerous times, calling them out when they overstepped or tried to take advantage of residents. The HOA president, in particular, had it out for me. Harold was a miserable old coot who seemed to delight in making everyone's lives difficult. He'd glare at me with beady eyes whenever we crossed paths, his jowls quivering with barely contained rage. I remember one particularly heated exchange at an HOA meeting last year. Harold had proposed raising the fees by $50 a month to cover landscaping improvements. What improvements? I challenged. The grass is half dead and we haven't had new flowers planted in 3 years. Harold's face turned an alarming shade of purple. Now see here, he sputtered, we have plans. Big plans. You residents just need to trust the board to do what's best. I stood my ground. I think we'd all feel better if you showed us some actual quotes and plans before asking for more money. Several other homeowners murmured in agreement. Harold looked like he was about to burst a blood vessel. In the end, the fee increase was limited to $20 that year. But I could tell Harold hadn't forgotten or forgiven my interference. Now, as I stared at the latest delinquency notice, I couldn't shake the feeling that this whole situation was payback. It seemed too convenient that suddenly I owed all this money, conveniently tied to an error they'd made. I paced my living room, debating my next move. Part of me wanted to march over to Harold's unit and give him a piece of my mind. But I knew that would only make things worse. Instead, I sat down at my computer and started drafting a formal complaint letter. I meticulously laid out the timeline of events, included copies of my cash checks and their erroneous coupon book, and demanded they provide a full accounting of how they'd arrived at the amount they claimed I owed. As I typed, my neighbor Sheila knocked on my door. "Hey, did you get one of these?" she asked, waving a familiar-looking envelope. I nodded grimly. "Let me guess, they're saying you owe back fees and late charges too?" Sheila's eyes widened. "How did you know?" We compared notes and realized we weren't alone. At least half a dozen other neighbors had received similar notices. It wasn't just targeted at me. It was a widespread issue affecting multiple homeowners. "We need to band together," I told Sheila. "Strength in numbers." "Right." She nodded enthusiastically. "I'll start reaching out to others. Maybe we can get a group meeting together this weekend to strategize." Over the next few days, we connected with more affected residents. Some had already paid the disputed amounts out of fear or confusion. Others, like me, were digging in their heels and demanding answers. That Saturday, a group of us gathered in my living room. The mood was tense as everyone shared their experiences. "I can't afford these extra fees," said Ellen, a retired teacher who lived alone. "I'm on a fixed income as it is." Mark, a young father of 2, chimed in. "It's not just the money, it's the principle of the thing. They can't just arbitrarily charge us for their mistakes." We spent hours discussing our options. Some wanted to hire a lawyer right away. Others suggested we try one more time to reason with the board before escalating things. In the end, We decided on a two-pronged approach. We'd send a joint letter signed by all affected residents, demanding a full explanation and immediate reversal of the charges. At the same time, we'd start researching our legal options in case they continued to stonewall us. I volunteered to draft the letter, incorporating input from everyone. We scheduled another meeting for the following weekend to review and finalize it. As the group filed out, I felt a mix of emotions. On one hand, I was angry that we were being put through this stress and hassle. On the other, there was a sense of camaraderie forming among neighbors who'd barely spoken before. The next week dragged by as I anxiously waited for any response from the management company or board. My inbox remained stubbornly empty. The only communication was yet another bill, now claiming I owed over $240 in late fees and back charges. I gritted my teeth and reminded myself to stay calm. We had a plan in motion, but it was hard not to feel discouraged by their continued silence. Saturday rolled around, and once again my living room filled with concerned neighbors. I presented the draft letter, and we spent an hour fine-tuning the wording. Everyone agreed it struck the right balance between firmness and professionalism. So who wants to do the honors of delivering this? I asked, holding up the final printed version. After a moment of awkward silence, Sheila spoke up. I think it should be you. You've been leading this charge from the beginning. I hesitated, knowing how Harold was likely to react, but looking around at the hopeful faces of my neighbors, I knew I couldn't back down now. All right, I said with a nod. I'll drop it off first thing Monday morning. The weekend crawled by as I rehearsed what I'd say when I handed over the letter. I barely slept Sunday night, my mind racing with possible scenarios. Monday dawned gray and drizzly, matching my mood perfectly. I put on my most professional-looking outfit, grabbed the letter, and headed for the management office. As I approached the door, I saw a familiar portly figure through the window. Harold was there, gesticulating wildly as he spoke to someone. Great, just what I needed. I took a deep breath and pushed open the door. Harold's head snapped around, his eyes narrowing as he recognized me. Well, he sneered. If it isn't the resident rabble-rouser, come to pay your delinquent fees finally? I plastered on my most neutral expression. Actually, Harold, I'm here to deliver this. I held out the letter. It's from a group of concerned homeowners regarding the recent billing issues. Harold snatched the envelope from my hand, his face growing redder by the second as he skimmed its contents. This is outrageous, he bellowed. You can't dictate terms to the board like this. We'll see about this. I stood my ground, even as he continued to rant and rave. When he finally paused for breath, I simply said, we look forward to your prompt response and resolution of this matter. With that, I turned on my heel and walked out, leaving Harold sputtering behind me. My heart was pounding, but I felt a small sense of victory. We'd made our move. Now it was up to them to respond. As I headed home, I couldn't help but wonder what the next chapter in this HOA saga would bring. One thing was certain. This battle was far from over. There doesn't seem to be any retaliation going on. They sent you the wrong information about what dues were owed. What it will come down to is when the board told you the new rates. The board has to tell you the correct information, and if the booklets are how they tell you the new rate, then they are. If they told you before the booklets came out that you owe the new rate at the start of the year, the isn't entirely to blame here. The board is who controls them. This is exactly right. OP, when was the official notification of the rate increase? If it was prior to the booklets coming out, you knew the increase was in place but decided to go with the incorrect amount. You owe them the additional payment. If the official notification was the booklet, then I'd check your docs and see if the board has the ability to enforce retro dues. If so, you'll be on the hook for the updated amount January-December even though they made an error. Did you attend your last open session meeting? The board and the should be announcing the increases at that time. Most boards meet quarterly with residents. This would be the time they announce increases. Otherwise, you'd be notified by mail or electronically or both. Don't be surprised dues are going up. They're going up everywhere, including my community. The price of maintaining things is going up, not down. Many communities kept dues low and deferred maintenance.
I would like to thank you for watching the video to the end. To encourage us to make more videos, please like, subscribe, comment, as well as share. Check out this other video if you haven't already.